I still remember the night the ground swallowed their homes. The sound was like nothing I'd ever heard, deep, wet, final. One moment, those brand-new villas stood tall lights glowing behind their glass walls. The next, they were sinking slow and deliberate like the land itself had decided it was done pretending. They called it progress. I called it payback. I moved into Fox Hollow Ridge 13 years ago. Back then, it was peaceful. A small community surrounded by pine and cattails with a stretch of wetland behind my house that felt alive. Every morning, I'd sit on my back porch with a mug of coffee watching mist roll off the marsh like the ghosts of an older world. I wasn't looking for trouble. After 30 years as a soil and structural analyst with the Army Corps of Engineers, I'd had enough of bureaucracy and arguments. I just wanted quiet. My wife had passed away 3 years earlier. My daughter lived across the country. That marsh, that breathing piece of land, it grounded me. Then one day I noticed survey flags, bright orange stakes cutting through the reeds like an infection. A week later, I sat through a community meeting where Everett Langston, the HOA president, strutted up to the podium in his tailored jacket and silver hair, smiling like a politician. He unveiled the grand vision, 23 luxury villas, circling what he called a reclaimed lakeside vista. Paddle boats, docks, tennis courts. This development, he said, will elevate property values and redefine Fox Hollow Ridge. I raised my hand. You do realize that land is classified as a Category 2 wetland, right? Everett smiled tight, condescending. We've consulted with professionals, he said. It's reclaimable. Reclaimable. That word still makes my blood boil. I'd seen what happens when people try to reclaim what nature never offered. I'd seen entire runways crack under their own arrogance. That night, I dug through my old storage boxes, pulled out every soil report, hydrology forecast, and environmental map from when the marsh was designated protected in the 1980s. The aquifer under that land was like a sponge. It absorbed seasonal rains, stabilized the whole cul-de-sac. Drain it, and the ground would collapse. I wrote the board a letter, attached all the evidence, and hand-delivered copies myself. A week later, their response arrived, not an acknowledgement, not a discussion, just a fine. $700 for unauthorized signage. Apparently, my little wooden stake that read, "Protected Wetland, Do Not Disturb," violated visual harmony standards. That was the moment I knew this wasn't ignorance. This was war. A few mornings later, I heard the low roar of diesel engines. I stepped onto my porch and saw them flatbeds rolling in with industrial pumps and hoses as thick as my arm. They started draining the marsh at sunrise, sucking the water out like they were bleeding it dry. No vote, no notice, no permit on display. I took pictures, recorded videos, logged timestamps, and sent everything to the county's Environmental Planning Division. No reply. I called 3 numbers, left messages. Nothing. So I reached out to an old friend, Carlos Eddings, who used to serve with me. He worked in regional planning for the state. I sent him an email with every document I had. He wrote back, "If what you're saying is true, that land is protected. They're breaking the law. Send me everything. I'll flag it to state EPA." For the first time, I felt a flicker of hope. But Everett doubled down. He sent another newsletter bragging about Phase 1 progress. He called the drained marshland a future lakeside paradise. Then came the whisper campaign. Neighbors stopped waving. Someone posted anonymous flyers claiming I was spreading misinformation threatening progress. They even printed a photo of me taken from a trail cam mud on my hands crouched near the reeds captioned, "Do not engage with this individual." I started to question myself. Was I the crazy one? Was I really standing in the way of something good? The HOA made me look like a bitter old vet chasing ghosts. For a few days, I almost believed them. I stopped emailing. I stopped walking the marsh. I just sat inside staring at the blinds, listening to the pumps roar like monsters in the distance. Then the phone rang. A woman's voice, young, urgent. "Mr. Halbrook, my name is Mara Jensen. I'm with the state's Wetland Preservation Task Force. I reviewed your files. The soil's losing cohesion already. If they keep draining the ground, could collapse. We're pushing for an emergency stop order." Her words snapped something back into place inside me. I wasn't crazy. The ground was, but the HOA retaliated again, more fines. Mailbox non-compliance, excessive weeds, unauthorized bird feeder. It was paper warfare meant to bury me in bureaucracy. I documented everything, scanned each notice, time-stamped every minute. Still, the weight of it all wore me down. Then, one evening, a knock on my door. A woman in her 40s, tired eyes, wind-chapped face. "You're the guy fighting the HOA, right?" she asked. "Name's Linda. They tried to find me for a swing set." She paused, lowered her voice. "My son used to work that marsh. Said you're right, it's sinking already." I invited her in. We talked for hours. About Everett's sudden wealth, his backdoor deals the neighbors bullied into silence. And for the first time I realized something powerful. I wasn't alone anymore. Days later, it happened. A geyser 10 feet high erupted in the middle of the construction site. Black sludge methane bubbles the smell of decay. I watched from my porch, heart pounding. The foreman yelled, workers scattered. The marsh had finally spoken. The HOA called it a minor drainage complication. I called it proof. That night I uploaded every photo and document to a public drive. I sent them to the state, the EPA, every city council member whose email I could find. I even printed copies and dropped them in the HOA clubhouse mailbox. A week later, Carlos called. "You did it," he said. "EPA's opening a case. They're sending inspectors." For once, silence fell over the neighborhood. The pumps stopped. The trucks idled. The land finally breathed again. But Everett wasn't finished. He held a secret meeting, tried to spin the story. Then he made a mistake. He forged an internal permit. Mara found the original document, the one they'd buried years ago, clearly stating the land was unsuitable for residential construction. I sent that along with proof of falsification to the EPA. And then the storm came, literally. The rain started just after dusk, heavy and relentless. By midnight, the streets were rivers. I stood at my window, flashlight in hand, watching water pour back into the drained trenches like veins refilling. The pumps, still idle from the shutdown order, sat useless. I saw the first collapse around 11 p.m., a storage shed tipping, sinking into the mud, folding in half like paper. Then came the villas. Lot 4 went first. The ground cracked open, concrete slabs sliding sideways into the black water. The rebar twisted, the soil groaned. One of the cement trucks disappeared halfway into the earth, only its drum left spinning above the surface. And Everett's house, his prized model villa on Lot 6, leaned hard left porch ripped from the foundation. The entire structure tilted like a ship going under. When the storm cleared, the neighborhood woke to a disaster zone. Lot 4 was gone, a pit 20 feet deep filled with brown water and oil sheen. People gathered in robes and raincoats, staring in silence. Reporters arrived. One stuck a microphone in my face. "Mr. Halbrook, is this what you warned about?" I looked past her to the wreckage, to the sinking villas, to the marsh reclaiming what was stolen. "No," I said. "This is what they refused to hear." Within days, the investigation exploded. The EPA, county officials, even FEMA showed up. Inspectors found shredded documents in the HOA, dumpster permits, invoices, checks written to shell companies. Turns out, Everett had funneled over $400,000 of HOA funds into his own accounts. The board dissolved. Everett vanished, later arrested in Austin. The other members folded one by one, resignations, plea deals, denials. But the truth was too heavy to bury, even for them. I testified at the hearing. I wasn't nervous, just tired. When I finished recounting the entire mess from the first survey flags to the night the villas collapsed, the judge looked at me and said quietly, "Thank you for your service, Mr. Halbrook." And for the first time, it didn't sound like a cliché. They convicted Everett for fraud, environmental negligence, and falsification of public documents. 6 years in prison, parole after 3. The others got fines, community service bans from ever serving on a board again. As for the neighborhood, it changed. The city took over management. Linda helped form a new community council. No secret meetings, no fake smiles, no power trips. Just residents trying to fix what was left. The marsh was declared a protected restoration site. They fenced off the collapsed lots, built wooden railings and signs explaining what had happened. They called it the sink. School kids came to learn about hydrology and consequences. I still walk the path every morning. Same boots, same coffee. The cattails are growing back. The frogs are singing again. Sometimes I think about Everett, about how certain he was that the land could be controlled. But nature doesn't sign contracts. It remembers. And when pushed too far, it takes back everything. Lesson: never build your paradise on ground that's warning you it wants to stay wild.